Oh, hello, people of the world. If you're watching this, you already know me, Jay Sark, host of Varsity Blue on Wolf TV and one half of the comedy duo that produces Ultimate Sports Show. However, today I'm bringing another program to the table. Welcome to Sark on Sports. It's my own daily show-esque take on the latest headlines in sports, as well as showing the ers in sports coverage and providing my unique perspective on everything. However, let's cannonball right into this. First off, as many of you know, the Baseball Hall of Fame voting happened last month. Tom Glavine, Greg Maddux, and the big hurt Frank Thomas are all headed to Cooperstown. However, on the day of the vote, controversy overtook the news when it was found out that one member of the Baseball Writers Association of America gave his vote to sports website Deadspin, who in turn would allow the fans to select the Hall of Famers on their behalf. And who was that, you might ask? Let's check the clip.
Le Batard is under fire after giving his Hall of Fame vote away for free to website Deadspin.com, which had its readers choose who they wanted Le Batard to vote for. Ironically, of the 10 former players readers selected, their top 3, Greg Maddux, Tom Glavine, and Frank Thomas, were the only 3 to get elected to the Hall of Fame. In a letter to Deadspin about why he was giving his vote to fans, he said he felt his vote had become worthless and that the voting process was flawed.
Well, Lottie Le Batard, first, Dan Le Batard has been a polarizing figure of the sports media for the better part of the last decade. I like Dan Le Batard, the Miami Herald columnist who hosts Highly Questionable on ESPN2, as well as his own radio show that just went nationwide on ESPN Radio late last year. He explained himself after the news broke on Highly Questionable.
If it's any solace for you because you're clearly lashing out because you're jealous that I have a Hall of Fame vote and you don't, I probably won't have one next year because I gave mine this year to Deadspin because I don't like how they do business over there at the Hall of Fame where they're sitting there and they're being sanctimonious and they're keeping all the steroid guys out. Just broke news. Look at the shock on the faces of the producers. They're right there.
You could have gave it to me. I wanted to vote.
Yeah, I knew you wanted it. I knew you wanted it. That was all envy you just heard from him.
If he doesn't want a vote, I'll take over his vote. I got a lot of experience. I got a Heisman vote. That qualified me for voting for the Hall of Fame.
I think we all no longer have votes, I'm guessing, by about the time this airs.
I never got one. I would have treated it with respect.
Le Batard found out his punishment the next day. He was banned from covering MLB games by the Baseball Writers Association for 1 year, which is absurd, but also a paper ban. Do you really think ESPN would keep him from attending an MLB game if he said pretty please? And he lost his Hall of Fame vote, which is somewhat less absurd. What was most ridiculous, however, was the backlash from his fellow BBWA members and other members of the press, including co-workers like Tony Kornheiser and Michael Wilbon, if pardon the interruption.
Who didn't get in are always part of the story. Now we have a guy who didn't vote becoming a big story. Worse than not voting, actually, our dear friend Dan Le Batard gave away his vote to Deadspin. Le Batard offers up some massively lame excuse about the voting process being flawed and the, quote, sanctimony of the Hall of Fame gatekeepers, close quote, as reasons why his vote no longer matters. Tone, should the Baseball Writers of America immediately revoke Dan's vote? Please, say yes.
Yes, but sooner than immediately.
Okay, good.
Sooner than immediately. Look, I love him. I'm going to sound like Charles Barkley. He's my great friend, but there's nothing more democratic than the voting for the Hall of Fame. One man, one vote.
What's Le Batard talking about? What process?
So when you say that that's not a good process, it's not a good system. No, it is a good system.
Yeah.
What's not good is if you say, I laugh at you. My ego is such that I laugh at you and spit in your face and give my vote away. If you want the steroid guys in, if you want to make that argument, advocate for the steroid guys. Write columns, go on your radio show, go on TV, and don't throw your vote away.
It's so sanctimonious for Le Batard to offer up this garbage, okay? Because when you have a radio show that is now national, a television show that's national every day.
Advocate.
You write columns, you can go, you even wrote for Deadspin. You have a voice, a big fat voice that can reach everyone. Don't tell me that the process is flawed. Lobby for what you believe in.
And I know he believes in anarchy, but this is not the set of The Big Lebowski. Okay, this is egotism run amok. I don't think you give your vote. First of all, it's vote fraud.
It's irresponsible.
And by the way, if the people who count the vote, if they decide that's voter fraud, then he's the second vote that Biggio doesn't get in, even though the Deadspin people put Biggio on the ballot.
Yeah, you know, this whole thing, you can object to a process, even though the process is not flawed. You can object to it. So object to it. People can hear you.
Look,
You're not one of the littles?
We are not immune to this. We are self-congratulatory people. But this is even beyond us.
But the whole I'm going to give it away.
Man, stop.
Don't do that.
And we love you.
Love you, Danny.
You're wrong.
Oops.
Louisville report.
Tisk, 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 Tony and Mike. People can knock Le Batard, but really, this is the baseball writers throwing stones from inside their glass house. It's safe to assume that even the writers, who know the process is flawed, they know what they're doing, but they're just trying to shame Le Batard. And the process is flawed. This can be indicated by one single vote for Jock Jones. Yes, Jock Jones, who sits 410th on the all-time home run list with 165 and hit a stunning 277 in a 10-year career. However, let's go over some of the mean things that journalists said about him. First off, from CBS Sports' John Heyman, shame on the sanctimonious attention seeker who turned his vote over to a website. #sad. Hang on a second. Show me that John Heyman clip with a slight error in there, because I see something wrong. Wait a second, John, what's that? You spelled it as sanctimonious when you meant to say sanctimonious. You cannot use a burn word unless you spell it properly on Twitter. For shame. However, sanctimonious seems to be the touchword regarding Le Batard. Let's see how our good old friend the dictionary defines it. Sanctimonious, spawning from sanctimoniousness, is the quality of being hypocritically devout. John Heyman. Now, isn't that the pot calling the kettle black? Now, Dan did have a point that the voting system is flawed. Craig Biggio missed the ballot by a whopping 2 votes, because to make the Hall of Fame, it is required that a candidate receive 75% of the votes. This is a high entry threshold, especially considering the voters consist of the baseball writers, who, while knowledgeable, shouldn't be the only ones guarding the vaunted gates to Cooperstown. You know who is unqualified to vote according to this selection process? Just a short list to go over. Vin Scully, the legendary Dodgers commentator. Dan Shulman, one of the best play-by-play men in the business for ESPN. Mike Krukow, Dwayne Kuiper, the list goes on and on. God forbid baseball fans represent 1/571st of the votes. You know, 1 out of 571 is 0.18%. It's not like that's getting someone into the Hall of Fame. Also, maybe, just maybe, fans know something about baseball? Okay, maybe I was slightly wrong. Regardless, back in the days of old-timey journalism, the era of Grandland Rice, and even into the 1960s, the newspapers did run the media, bar none. However, we live in a time now where newspapers are switching over to digital, and ESPN, Fox Sports, other websites, and television have the bigger say. Now, for Le Batard, he admitted that he regretted the fact that he became the story, and he wished he waited a few days before revealing himself as the voter. I, for one, agree with him on that. Unfortunately, the media did shift the spotlight away from Glavine, Maddox, and Frank Thomas. However, in an effort to bring the spotlight back to 2 of the greatest pitchers ever, I'll leave you with possibly the best Nike ad of all time.
How long are they going to worship this guy?
Hey! We got Cy Young winners over here! Come on, Alice! Step into it!
Feel bigger?
Yeah.
Hi, Tom.
chicks dig the long ball.
Hey, have you guys seen Mark?
You guys seen Mark?
Oh, a simpler time, steroid era or not, chicks do dig the long ball. We got some bills to pay. We'll see you on the other side of these quick commercial messages.
Watching the Ultimate Sports Show on Wolf TV. Don't change that dial.
Welcome back to the debut episode of Sark on Sports. For those of you who weren't aware, today is National Signing Day in college football, which means high school players can officially sign letters of intent for the university they choose to attend and play for. For some Michigan fans, today is a sign of hope. Others, however, are not as optimistic. After Michigan's 2013 campaign ended in a 7-6 record, I decided to head to campus to talk to Michigan students about how they felt about such a poor season for Michigan football. August 2013, Ann Arbor, Michigan. Over 100,000 fans packed the Big House to cheer on the 134th team in Michigan football history. A season that began with promise and excitement, and even a 5-game win streak quickly turned south for the Maize and Blue. A nightmare loss to Michigan State, losing at home for the first time in 3 years to Nebraska, paired with injuries and inexperience, had the team limping to a 2-6 finish, including a 3-game losing streak to close out the year. Now, in the dark of winter, more questions surround this program than answers. Michigan Stadium now lays dormant, hibernating like a sleeping bear until Team 135's season opener against Appalachian State on August 30th. Fans have been coming to this stadium and spending their fall Saturdays here for 87 years now. However, with on-field results not meeting expectations and ticket prices continuing to rise, fans are voicing their concerns about the Wolverines now more than ever. I talked to students here at the University of Michigan to see what their thoughts on the upcoming 2014 campaign were.
Disappointing.
Pitiful.
Horrible.
Depressing.
Abysmal. It was not really what a lot of people expected it to be. A lot of people expected us to do a lot better than we really did this year.
These are the words that Michigan students used to describe the team's 2013 season. They clearly were unimpressed with the team's 7-6 record in Coach Brady Hoke's third year, and I asked them if they think Hoke is the right man to lead Michigan to a Big Ten championship within the next 2 years.
No, because we've clearly shown that we can't keep up in the Big Ten, and it's not even considered a power conference anymore.
I think Brady Hoke is the right man to lead Michigan to a Big Ten championship. I do think that maybe there are some changes that he could make to the style he's going about that.
I'm very torn on that. I want to say yes, and I think hiring the new offensive coordinator is a good step in that direction. And if he can prove that he can coach up his players and his recruiting classes turn out, then I definitely think he's the right guy. But if not, then we probably need to make a change sooner rather than later.
From despair to cautious optimism, the focus has now shifted from Hoke to this man, new offensive coordinator Doug Nussmeier, who was brought in from Alabama. He has provided buzz among Michigan fans after helping coach the Crimson Tide to a national title in 2012 and turning A.J. McCarron into a Heisman-level quarterback in 2013. Students think he could bring much improvement over outgoing coordinator Al Borges.
I think Doug is a great choice. I think that he's going to bring in a lot of new energy and a lot of new system to Michigan, a way to play that really Michigan hasn't always done, which bring a little bit back to the old days of the Bo, powerhouse football, but also throw in some new stuff that could really make us a competitor, especially for a Big Ten championship.
I think Doug getting hired is exciting. To take the offensive coordinator from the #1 team in the country, or one of the best, and bring him here, I just think it's exciting, and I hope that things really turn around.
New offensive coordinator and scheme aside, the biggest question still remains. After the controversial new general admission seating policy was administered on students in 2013, would they still buy season tickets in 2014 for a weak home schedule that does not include rivals Michigan State or Ohio State and has Penn State as the quote-unquote Cadillac home game of the season?
As of right now, especially if the price goes up, I don't think I'm going to buy tickets.
No, no way. No. And considering the fact that they messed up the student section to go to that general admission so they could just pack more people in, terrible.
There's no way I'm going to buy tickets next year.
Yes, I do plan on buying student tickets. I was born here in Ann Arbor. I've always been a Michigan fan. And even in the worst of times, you know, like Bo said, those who stay will be champions. And I believe that there's better days around the corner.
The building behind me is Schembechler Hall, which, while only built in 1990, just underwent a $23 million renovation. The big question is, inside this fortress of glass and steel, are the proper changes being made that will appease Michigan fans in the 2014 season in terms of on-field results? With tough road games this season against Notre Dame, Michigan State, and Ohio State, the pressure is on Brady Hoke in his fourth year as head coach to return Michigan to its former glories, and the fans are expecting nothing less than an appearance in the Big Ten championship game. For Wolf TV, I'm Jay Sarkar. Thanks, me. We're going to take another quick commercial break, but I have a very special guest on the other side.
I think there's a show today.
We should probably roll Tide. This cake is delicious.
Let's do it live.
Welcome back to Sark on Sports. My guest joining me now is the current president of the Michigan Central Student Government, and he, along with CSG, have launched an initiative to try and resolve some of the acrimony between the Michigan Athletic Department and the Michigan student body regarding the controversial ticket policy change for the 2013 season. Now, here to talk more about that, ladies and gentlemen, Michael Proppe. Michael, how are you doing today?
Good, Jay. Thank you so much for having me on. Really
Yes, thank you
appreciate
for
it.
joining us. But hey, let's dive right into it. So when the new student ticket policies were announced in April of 2013, how soon after that did CSG decide to take action, coming up with a plan to have a discourse with the athletic department?
About 5 minutes after we got it. This was the day before I was actually sworn in as president of the Central Student Government. The policy was announced, and the student body went ballistic. There was a petition signed that got about 3,000 signatures. Facebook groups were springing up. I was getting a bunch of emails. And so we knew we had to do something to address this. So it was 2 days later. We were in our first Central Student Government Assembly meeting of the year, and we passed 2 resolutions. The first one said that any future ticketing policy changes need to have student input in them. Seems reasonable.
Mm-hmm.
And the second one opposed the general admission ticketing policy that was being put in place. So we came out firing right away.
All right, and as you just mentioned, social media had some resoundingly negative comments from many students. You and CSG developed a survey that was sent out in October that had nearly 6,000 responses, and 76% of respondents opposed the policy, as opposed to 17% that supported the new policy. What were your thoughts immediately upon receiving the results of the survey, and how did that affect your ongoing talks with the athletic department?
Well, it wasn't terribly surprising. Everything that we had heard up until that point was negative, but it was nice to have some data behind that and to have so many students express disappointment with the policy. But you start thinking a little bit longer term here. If we have 77% of the current season ticket holders not satisfied with the policy that's in place, are we going to retain them into next season when the schedule's a little bit weaker? And are we going to retain them long-term as alumni, as donors back to the university?
All right, and then this is a quote from the Michigan Daily on October 8th from Zach Helfand. And then there were the 6% of those who support the policy, about 60 response, who said they were in favor of the plan because they enjoy standing in line. Can you make anything of that?
A little strange. You know, it's only 6% of the people who like the policy, so we're talking about a relatively small number.
It's a very small number.
This was one of the goals of the athletic department, was to make that student queue a fun experience. I mean, they had a DJ, they were bringing in pizza, they had charging stations for your phone. So that was something athletics was trying to achieve. Clearly, not many people thought that was that great of an experience. Not that many people were waiting in line, actually, by the end of the year. And there's probably 20 to 30 of them are just trolls. Who
I was going to say, just why not? We'll mess with the
right,
data a little
yeah,
bit.
yeah.
All right, so now one of the bigger problems people had more so than GA, including myself, was that there was a 25% increase in price last season as well. Michigan has the second most expensive tickets among FBS schools, and it's possible there could be another increase for 2014. With a significantly weaker home schedule, do you think the only way the athletic department may alter their stance is if the students choose not to buy tickets?
Yeah. So the pricing thing is really interesting. First, so the University of Michigan is one of a few schools that doesn't have an athletics fee. So athletics revenue from students is coming from students buying tickets, which is good. I don't think there should be an athletics fee. The increase, at least the official word from athletics, is that increase is going to fund the rec sports building renovations. So if you work out the math on that, they're raising about an extra $1 million a year, which is going to the rec sports renovations, which is something that definitely athletics has housed rec sports in the past. It just recently was adopted by the Office of Student Life. So it makes sense that athletics is contributing to those. Does it make sense for athletics to pass that directly onto their student season ticket holders is an open question. The price will not be going up next year.
Fantastic news for students.
Yep. So it makes sense. I mean, you take a look at the schedule.
I was going to say,
it's
no
brutal.
Ohio State, no Michigan State. If Penn State's your premier home game,
and
you cannot be raising costs.
And that's the fall break game.
Oh, wow.
So,
my.
So we're hurting next year to fill the stadium, right? So the price is not going up, which is good news. Will the University of Michigan lower the prices or change the policies if students stop buying tickets? I don't know. You certainly want to have a big student section. It creates a home field advantage.
It's what makes college football.
Exactly. But at the same time, the students are getting a half-price ticket. And so if you don't sell the ticket to a student and there's somebody who's willing to pay the full price, that actually isn't hurting the athletics bottom line. So you have to try and parse out what are really the motivators for athletics with this.
Prime example of that was when they added the 2,000 seats behind the student section for
Right.
public purchase. And those were always full, even during the Akron game when about 80% of the student body elected to show up late or not at all.
Yeah.
And then finally, you touched on this a little bit earlier. How do you think this current system between not just football, but even the new basketball seating system, how do you think that's going to affect athletic department and student relations in the long term as students like myself who are graduating in May are going to become alumni soon? You think this may make for a tenuous situation down the road?
It'll depend on how it's addressed. If athletics takes all the input that CSG has gathered, that other students have given them, and do make changes that improve the student experience, then that's going to be a positive outcome with the student relations. If not, then, like I said, there's concerns. The students who are graduating right now are about to become alumni. The university is very reliant on alumni donations, on alumni coming back for football games. And so if that link is lost, that's a serious long-term concern for the university. So I think athletics, we've opened up a good dialogue with them. We've held a lot of meetings with officials in the athletic department about this and basketball. And so they're listening. And so now we just need some action to come out of that. And so I'm hopeful that we'll see some changes that are positive going into next year.
All right, well, best of luck on your efforts. Thank you for joining us today. And hopefully it'll be a little bit of a better situation next year. No sudden ticket policy changes for students who bought for tickets.
Agreed.
Michael, thanks
Thank
for
you,
joining
Jack.
us.
Thanks for having me.
Yep, we will be right back after this quick commercial break.
It's time to wake up with Wolf.
It's time to wake up with Wolf!
Ready for mic check? Ready? Take one. And welcome to Wake Up with Wolf at 11 a.m., the 8 a.m. of college life.
That is our show, ladies and gentlemen. I would like to thank you for watching. A special thanks to my guest, Michael Proppe. For those who want more, feel free to follow me on Twitter at JDSarkar. And on behalf of our entire crew, thanks for stopping by. We'll see you soon.